Hey everybody, it's Randy Wolfe and welcome back to the video series. Video 9 is where we are. If you have not watched the previous 8 videos, be sure to do that. But in this video, we're going to talk about closing your first deal without getting ripped off. All right, so you've done the hard work. Now it's time to close. But this is where a lot of first-time investors can drop the ball, unfortunately, or they can get hit with expensive surprises. I'm going to walk you through how to close smoothly and protect yourself every step of the way. Let's make sure your first closing is a win. All right, so what exactly does the closing process actually look like? This can be kind of scary when you're just getting started out and you have no idea what you're doing. So let's walk through that. So closing is more than just signing papers and getting keys. I think people a lot of times sort of think that. It's really a coordinated process with multiple steps and several people involved. So here's kind of a typical breakdown of what happens after your offer is accepted. So first thing, you open escrow with a title company or an attorney. They hold your earnest money and they start the title search process. Now, during that period, you complete inspections and due diligence. Previous video we just went through talked about all of that. Your lender orders an appraisal, and that is typically going to be, if you're financing, there's going to be an appraisal, usually if there's a lender involved. Maybe if it's a private money lender, there's no appraisal oftentimes, but usually if it's any kind of company, it's going to be some sort of appraisal. Final numbers are confirmed and a closing date is set. You do your final walkthrough, funds are wired and documents get signed, and ownership transfers. You get the keys to your brand new investment property. Now, knowing this roadmap kind of helps you stay in control of that entire process. Your title company or closing attorney is your legal safety net. That's really how you need to think about them. Sometimes things can get held up and it might be frustrating to you, but you got to remember that they are acting as a safety net for you. They make sure the title is clean, liens are paid, and everything is done by the book. They also draft or review the closing documents. If they miss something, it could cost you a lot of time and even in some situations money. So choose someone experienced with investment properties. Ask your agent or member for referrals. They really do matter, and most people think, I mean, it's important to get a good solid attorney or a good solid title company. You really do want to get someone that's investor friendly. One of the biggest dangers at closing is wire fraud. Now, this is becoming a real thing, a real problem. Scammers target real estate deals with fake emails and fraudulent wiring instructions, and you don't want to be getting ripped off for tens of thousands of dollars. So here's how to avoid that. Only use verified contact information from your attorney or title company. You want to make sure you verify. Call them directly to confirm the wiring instructions. Never, ever trust an email alone. Be sure you call and verify. Double and triple check before you hit the send on a wire transfer. It's simple. It's an easy step, but you definitely want to do those things so you don't lose thousands of dollars making a mistake with the wire. You always want to do a final walkthrough, ideally the day before or actually even the morning of closing. I remember whenever I got my real estate license in 2005, I remember this conversation at real estate school. They're talking about how that literally the day you close on a property, you should actually go check it out, because what if that property's burned to the ground? You know, and you go and you close and then you go to your property and it's a smoldering heap. So it's good to do a final walkthrough, particularly if you can do it the day of. That way you can make sure that the property is in the same condition or better than when you sign the contract. Another thing is, if you have bought a property or you're buying a property from a seller and they've agreed to get all their stuff out, and then you go over there and it's full of junk, that can cost you thousands of dollars to have that stuff removed. So it's always a good idea to go over there, check it out, and you can look at all the agreed upon repairs. If there were any, was that completed? Is everything that should be there still there? Appliances, fixtures, etc. Any new damage or issues since the inspection? Has the property been cleared out? Those sort of things. Don't assume. Be sure to verify. It's something that you can check on, and if there's anything that's not right, you can delay the closing. So you'll receive a financial statement that's called a HUD-1 for cash deals, or a closing disclosure for loans. We often refer to this simply as a HUD statement, and this shows all the cost, fees, who's paying what, that sort of thing. Don't skim it, and become very knowledgeable of how to read a HUD statement. You want to review every line. Are the numbers what you expected? Are there any junk fees in there that shouldn't be in there? Do the seller credits, the seller agreed to credit credits, are they showing up on the HUD statement? You want to be sure you ask your title company or lender to explain anything that looks off so that you can make sure everything is right and you catch any type of errors before you sign. Real quick, if this is giving you clarity on the closing process, do me a huge favor, hit the subscribe button, and if you're interested, be sure to check out the link in the description below about my private community. Inside, I break down closings, how to help new investors avoid costly first-timer mistakes. We have a lot of mentorship in there. It's a wonderful community. Be sure to check that out. And now back to the video. All right, next let's talk about closing costs. Closing costs can feel a little bit overwhelming, okay? So I want to break those down for you so you understand what is all this money going for, okay? Typically, what's included is title insurance. You do want to typically get title insurance. I've had an instance before where I had to use title insurance, so I encourage you, get title insurance. This protects you from any hidden title issues that can poke its ugly head up down the road. Lender fees. This is origination fees, underwriting fees, etc. Transfer taxes or recording fees, escrow or attorney fees, prepaid insurance and taxes, miscellaneous fees, couriers, notaries, etc. All of those things. As a buyer, you can typically expect, now again, this is sort of a rough estimate. It depends on where you are in the world, in the country. Typically, you can expect to pay about 2 to 5% of the purchase price in closing costs. Just know where your money's going and be sure when you are putting this deal together, you budget for that, okay? 2 to 5%. It tends to be, again, about 3%, but just depending on where you live, it could be a little bit less or a little bit more. Now, you don't want to wait until the day before closing to ask questions. Touch base with your lender or your funding partner at least a week before the closing and be sure you confirm your loan terms and rate lock, final, down payment amount, timing of the wire, any last minute conditions that you need to know. When everyone's aligned, closing goes a whole lot more smoothly than if there's missing information or things that you're not sure of. Surprises at this stage really cause a lot of stress. I'm here to tell you it happens when you do a lot of transactions, things come up. And so I have closings where, things pop up and, wasn't anticipating this and it's stressful. I've got a closing actually coming up this coming week. It's an investment property, but I'm supposed to be going out of town and I'm trying to work it out to where we get the closing moved up. And so it's much nicer and less stressful when you have all of these loose ends tied up before closing day. So once closing day gets here and it's time to close, you do want to bring some things. So first of all, you need a valid government issued ID. Have your ID, have certified funds or proof of wire instructions depending on the deal. That's always important. So have proof of that. It's a good idea. If you're having a remote closing, have your phone and laptop, obviously. Just be sure to stay calm and have a focused mindset. You'll review, sign a huge stack of documents. Some of it feels pretty repetitive, but this is just legally necessary things that you need to sign. And just take your time. Ask questions. Make sure you understand what you're signing. I typically, again, I'm in South Carolina, we use attorneys. It is so second nature. I've done so many transactions now. With my attorney, I'm just literally just signing. But when you first get started, don't do that. Ask questions, take your time, and understand what you're signing and understand kind of each sort of document. That way, once you do more transactions, then you have a better understanding of what all these documents mean and how they affect you and your deal. All right, so after you have closed on the property, guess what? Your work still isn't done. So there are a few things that you still need to handle immediately. One that comes up that is oftentimes easily forgotten is you need to switch the utilities. So you'd switch the utilities over if you're going to be doing like renovations and all that. You got to have utilities on. One of the things that is, I know for a long time that I would forget to do when I was flipping properties, early on, I would forget to turn the utilities on. So I'd get my crew ready to go. They show up out there and there's no power. And I'm like, oh man, how did I forget to do that? So have a checklist, turn utilities on, make sure any insurance is updated and your coverage is accurate. Make sure you change the locks. Even if you trust the seller, it's a good idea to change the locks. If you have tenants, introduce yourself, set up the rent collection process, all of these sort of things. Missing one of these, it could end up costing you time, and even worse, it can cost you money. So make sure you do these post-close checklist things so that you can have a smooth transition into your new property. All right, congratulations, you did it. It's time to celebrate. You have closed your first deal. That is absolutely huge. Pat yourself on the back. But now you're officially a landlord or an asset manager, depending on what your strategy is going to be. And the real game begins. Now take a minute to celebrate. You earned it. Then get ready to run a property like a pro. In the next video in this series, I will show you how to manage your first rental property without losing your mind or your money. You're building wealth now, and let's make sure it runs like a business. So be sure to check out this next video in the series, how to manage your first rental property without going crazy. As always, I appreciate you watching, and I look forward to seeing you on the next one.